Okay, welcome to the Stellify podcast. I'm overexcited. I have the incredible Dr. PMH Atwater with me. And what can I say? PMH Atwater is one of the original and most prolific researchers of the near-death experience, with over 4 decades of work, thousands of case studies. PMH is the author of more than 18 books, including the Big Book of Near-Death Experiences.
Oh, 20. I'm on my 25th book.
25 books.
Yes, I'm on my 25th.
And your research has spanned everything from the spiritual transformations of experiences to the physiological and neurological after effects, especially in children. And what makes you so unique is that you're not just a researcher. You've actually had 3 NDEs of your own, haven't you?
Yep.
I mean, I know you would.
I was told to do this work. I was told to do it.
This is the thing. This is what I wanted to get into. I mean, I'm blown away. I've listened to you a lot. I'll be honest. I've listened to you, and I this is why I'm so excited, because I just think you're incredible. I think you're so wonderful. You're so beautiful. You're so joyous. I mean, it's just to share a bit of space with you today is going to make my year anyway. But
You're funny. You're funny.
Well, I was wondering. I know that you'll have said this, and you probably would have spoken to so many podcasters and repeated the same stories. But do you mind sharing that period, that 3-month period that you had, and the experience you had for my listeners, because they may not have heard this, and I've listened to it a few times, but I'm very interested for you to bring that forward, if you don't mind.
Well, I can sort of look back, if you will.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would be that detailed in doing so. I was raped, and what do you say when you're raped? And I went through a period of time of dealing with that, and it didn't work, and found out I was pregnant. So that became an issue physically, my body. And in January 2, January 4, and March 29 of 1977, I died. I physically died 3 times and came back. And in my 3rd near-death experience, and I realize I'm skipping over a lot of territory here, so maybe I need to go back a bit. And well, I get myself confused here. Go back a bit, and the first one, January 2, I found myself the need to go to the bathroom, and went to the bathroom, and that's when I passed the sack or the baby, and I found myself screaming, absolutely screaming in the bathroom, just screaming and screaming, and those screams were like the whole universe. It's like I was screaming for the whole universe, and I could hear that scream get bigger and bigger and grow bigger and bigger. And I found myself drawn to the light. In this case, in my case, it was the light in the bathroom. So I was drawn to that light, and was spinning around that light, looking back down, and there was blood everywhere, and I'm sorry, I tend to be a neatnik. I looked at that bloody mess and I thought, yuck. And the more I thought thoughts, the more blobs began to form in the air, like an ink blot.
Yeah.
A blob, only fully dimensional. And I began to, want to toss them away because they were in my way and I didn't like them.
Yeah.
And the next thing I know, I'm back on the pot, and my, and I saw that sack in the water, and I realized what it was. And I said I'm a neatnik, so the first thing I did was clean up the floor, and clean up the blood everywhere. And then I went back to bed, and I propped my legs up way high, and all kinds of pillows and stuff, and went to sleep. I can always go to sleep.
Okay.
I can. My dad was a police officer, and
Yeah.
they used to use the field outside my. I mean, we live south of town in Twin Falls, Idaho, and they used the field outside of my place as the gunnery range.
Okay.
And so I'd go to bed, and sometimes early, and I never heard a single shot fired. Never heard I've never heard the guns. I never heard a single shot fired, and I thought my dad was lying to me when he said, that all of the guys from the Twin Falls Police Force were coming down there and used for gunnery practice. I just thought the man was lying to me or kidding me because I never heard a thing. I never heard a thing. So please know that when I go to sleep, I'm asleep.
Yeah.
I don't know where you are, but I'm asleep.
Well, I wake up with a pin dropping.
Excuse me. And my second experience was January 4th. So that's 2 days later. And excuse me. Might have a little bit of water here.
Yeah.
And I woke up, sort of. My daughters came in to check on me. I had two daughters. I have 3 children, but two daughters that were at home. And they said I worked at a bank, and in the in a department in the bank.
Mm-hmm.
And I told them that I was. They asked if I was okay, and I said no, I'm not okay.
Yeah.
So they went off to school. They called the bank and said I would not be able to come. I was sick. So they went off to school. And I was left with me. And the pain in my right thigh was so bad that if I'd had a knife, I'd have cut my leg off. It was horrible. So my thought then was to get to a phone. We had real phones then.
Yeah.
Real phone. Not these funny little things we have now. We had real phones.
Yeah.
And we only had one phone in the house, and that there was a wall phone in the kitchen.
Okay.
And I was in the bedroom. But I could no longer walk. I tried, but couldn't. So I crawled and crawled across the living room and into the dining room. And if I gone 3 more feet, I could have pulled down the phone.
Okay.
From the wall, but by then it was just too painful. I died again.
Wow.
And this time I clearly remember rising above the body, and the pain was in waves. You know, these kind of waves you see. It's a real hot day, and you're walking on the sidewalk, and you see these waves over the in the air over the
Yeah.
sidewalk. It was that kind of thing. It was waves,
Okay.
and I went up to the ceiling again to a light fixture, and looking down, seeing my uh, body below, and I watched the body.
Yeah.
Um, because that's my body down there.
Yeah.
And so I then came closer to the body. I came down, my consciousness came closer to the body, and I studied the nose. No, the nose isn't working. Studied the heart. No, the heart isn't working. Nothing's working. And
Wow.
I was so gloriously happy. It's like,
Really?
I'm free, I'm free, I'm free, I'm free. I don't have to live in that body anymore. I'm free.
Wow.
And I found myself dancing around the light fixture in the dining room, a lot like as if it were a maypole.
Yeah.
You're dancing around the maypole.
Yeah.
And then I started to see thought forms in the air. And this time those blobs were colorful. They were beautiful, different colors.
Wow.
And I thought, oh my goodness, those are thoughts. Thoughts have form. They have life. They're
Wow.
thoughts. Wow. And I was so enamored with that
Yeah.
that I just, okay, if those are thoughts, then I can alter them and change them with my thoughts. Those thoughts, they're my thoughts. I can
Yeah.
alter them. So I decided that I would make a house. I would make a house with these thoughts. So
Wow.
I decided it would be um, a square house, white, front porch. You go up the porch, then sort of a gold doorknob or
Yeah.
bronze doorknob, and I walked around the house. It was four square, and
Yeah.
oh wow, look what I did! I was so happy. And then I thought, okay, I wonder if I can make it an animate object. So
Okay.
I decided to make a big oak tree.
Cool.
So I had this huge mammoth tree with all the roots and everything, and the bark, and some insect holes in the bark.
Yeah.
And I was just so proud of myself. There was the tree. It was my tree. And about that time, my body laying on the floor began to disappear, and the room I was in disappeared. And the next thing I knew, I was in another space. It was all black and it was all dark. I was in the void.
Wow.
And there was absolutely nothing there, yet everything was there. That's what the void is. It's that um, it's that container, if you want to call it a container, of
Okay.
everything that ever was,
Yeah.
everything that is, and everything that will ever be. That's the void. Yet it's nothing.
Huh.
And the only thing that makes a movement or that you can sense or tell that there is something there
Yeah.
is and I don't know you if you know this much about cooking, but jello. If you're going to make a jello dish,
Yeah.
Okay, so you made your Jello dish, and you're going to turn it upside down, and you're going to put it on a plate in the middle. Big thing of Jello dish.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I did, and just before, so you do that just before you touch the Jello. Take your finger and go just before you touch that Jello. Oh, there's a feeling.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a feeling there. That's the void.
Whoa.
That's the void. It's not some black hole.
Yeah.
It's alive. And it's like, oh. And I just went on a creation binge.
Yeah.
And I created a city and homes and people and dogs and cats and trash cans and everything, suns and grass and everything.
Wow.
And I looked at it and I was so proud and so enamored. Wow! I created a city and people and life and the next thing I knew, loved ones who had died and got on before me came forward.
Okay.
And that surprised me. And then especially a grandfather whom I had never met.
Yeah.
Didn't know he was there or could be there or what he looked like or anything, but he came up and introduced himself to me.
Wow.
He was the father of my father.
Yeah.
And I'd had 5 fathers and 2 mothers, so take your pick. I had an unusual lifetime.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's see, where's the book you need to get about my life? Well, wherever it is. Earthwalker. I think it's called Earthwalker.
Okay.
The Many Lives and Deaths of PMH Atwater.
Okay. Right.
And you
Okay.
get a little bit about me because I was raised by Norwegians.
Right. Okay.
In the reclaimed deserts of southern Idaho. I'm raised by Norwegians. Figure that one out. Well, it's weird, but anyway, that's the way it was for me.
Yeah.
And seeing my loved ones there, and everything I created was gone. I just gone. Didn't want them. Gone. And then Jesus came.
Wow.
And it wasn't any sense of bowing or he was the Lord of, but rather that he was my elder brother. And I went up to Jesus and I hugged him and he hugged me and we hugged. That was so wonderful. I just with my elder brother. And then he left. He was gone. And I floated back into my body like a carpet of sparklers, just sparklers. Went back to my body. And somehow I was able to get up, get in my car, and drive to a doctor's office.
Wow.
Don't ask me how I did it because I don't know.
No.
But I did. And my doctor's office wasn't that far away.
Yeah.
It was fairly close, so I didn't have that far to drive. And And the trip to the doctor's office was so strange. The road kept undulating, and all the houses changed shapes, and the windshield was just, excuse me, it was just, ah, it was so strange. And I got to the doctor's office and barely got out of my car and parked my car and walked in the door. And the first thing, there was a nurse there, and the first thing she said was, "You look like you're dead." So she rushed me right into the doctor. He gave me a shot in the right thigh vein, which is the worst thing he could have done.
Okay.
He was later sued for malpractice.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that. And I went home, safely parked my car, and went straight to bed. And the next day, my oldest daughter said, should I call in? Are you sick again? And I said, yes. I don't know how I got to a doctor.
Incredible.
I don't know how I got to. I managed somehow to get out of the bed, get clothes on, get my keys to the car. It's weird the things you think in a condition like that. I thought of money.
Did you?
Money. I had to go to work. That was
Okay.
my only source of income.
Yeah.
I had to go to work. So money. So I got in my car, and Boise, Idaho. I was living in Boise, Idaho at the time, and Boise, Idaho, the city. Think of a cup,
Right.
and they're the benches, and then the bottom of the cup is the Capitol building, and the main part of Boise, Idaho, and then there's these benches.
Okay.
And I lived on the where was I living? The second bench or something. And I knew I had to go to work. So I made it off the bench and made it down to where the bank was. And it didn't have an elevator there. They were renting space in this building because they were remodeling the bank.
Yeah.
So I was in another building.
Okay.
So I had to walk up the stairs, and of course you walk up a couple of steps, and then the next thing you know, you're walking backward or falling backward, and well, it took forever to climb the stairs.
Yeah, bet.
And by the time I got to the second floor, which is where my office was, fortunately my boss happened to walk by. She said, "You look like you're dead. You're going to see a doctor." So then I was taken to a real doctor. And his nurse was there, and he said, "You look like you're dead." And so the conversation and all this kind of stuff, and he gives me all this medicine. He did not send me to a hospital. Again, a doctor did not send me to a hospital. Why, I don't know.
No.
But he sent me home. He said, "You're to take these pills every 4 hours, round the clock." Was it 4 hours or 6 hours? I think it was 4. So round the clock, I took this stuff. And we had television then, and I had a TV set in the living room, and I could lay it down on the sofa and watch television.
Yeah.
And never did. Never turned that thing on.
Right.
I could hear people's thoughts at the same decimal that that they were speaking. I could hear that.
Wow.
And laying on this sofa, all of my past lives paraded in like a rainbow, like a rainbow bridge across my chest.
Whoa.
All of my past lives, ending with this strange, kind of greenish looking figure. And during this time, I apologized to my ovaries and my body that I had not taken care of myself better than I had, that I didn't go to the hospital like I should have gone to the hospital. And by the way, that first doctor I went to was later sued for malpractice.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I apologized to my body. So I began to work then back to work. And I would work for maybe half a day,
Yeah.
a week or so, and then the next maybe extend another hour and slowly but surely build back to a full-time job. I worked for the analytical department in the bank, and I was drawing forms.
Okay.
I had a great big drafting table, and I would draw out
Yeah.
forms. And all kinds of strange things began to happen in my life. I mean, really. I had a drafting table, great big drafting table. I'm sitting on a stool.
Yeah.
And suddenly my consciousness split out into 7 types that were doing different things. My consciousness was doing different. While I was doing one thing, my consciousness was doing 7 other things.
Oh. Wow.
And it's like a rainbow, not a rainbow bridge, but it's like a fan, this great fan.
Yeah.
And so while I'm drawing, it's like the lines of my drawing sort of got up, walked away. What? And just all kinds of strange things happened. And my boss noted this,
Hmm.
and she said, "You're scaring everybody in the office. You got to quit." And I said, I don't know how to quit because I don't know how it started. um, so I resolved somehow to quit. I resolved somehow to be normal again. Because it took forever to do anything.
Yeah.
It just took forever to do anything. And somehow this had to, somehow I had to be me again.
Hmm.
It had to happen.
To fit
And,
in.
and my boss called me into her office one day, and she said, "You're scaring everybody in the office. You have to quit, or I'm going to have to fire you."
Wow.
So, yeah, how do you do that? I don't know how I got to be that way in the first place.
Yeah.
So, I don't remember now exactly what I did. But I resolved that I'm going to be able to speed up my actions and my thoughts and my life so I can match what is normal for a human being.
Yeah.
So I made that decision. Um, and then the guy came back into my life that raped me. He came knocking at the door. And my daughter was there. Oldest daughter was there. It was like 10 at night or 12 or something. And he was begging for a place to stay.
Bloody hell.
He was like lost. And I said, well, you know, we have empty beds in this house. Pick a bed and go to sleep. I have to take a test in the morning because by then I had enrolled in college, first time in my life, in the analytical department, and I was taking up drafting. I was drafting.
Okay.
And so I went back to sleep, and then he raped me again.
Oh my God.
So it just he didn't want to leave this time. He wanted to stay. How do you get rid of someone? So he was in and out of my life. And finally, this can't be. You have to leave. You can pay for all my medical costs. And believe it or not, he did. And he left. We left for California. He was from California. Went back. And that's when I had my third near-death experience. He had come to the house explaining what had happened to his daughter because she had been raped. And he wanted to find out what that was like.
Oh my God.
And then he just left in a big huff. And I died. I just simply died. Fortunately, there was a big chairs, kind of like a sofa, only a big chair nearby. And I fell into the chair. And I remember just going up through the roof, up through the attic, and into the night sky. And this time I knew exactly what was happening, and I had no intention of returning to Earth.
Yeah.
Had it. That's it. So I'm way out into the night sky. Earth has become like a little ball. And I'm suddenly sucked into another world. It's like the universe. There opened up a lip of light, and I was sucked into that light. And I found myself in another world, and in this world was this construct, like an hourglass figure, spinning, and they were spinning different directions, and this incredible spin that was going on. And I'd had it with life. I'd had it with a body. I don't want to be a human being anymore. So my goal was to go through the center of that spin.
Mm-hmm.
Because out of there was coming a light I didn't know light could be. So I'm into that, and then I heard my son's voice. And by then he had returned from a cruise school above a square rigger in the Atlantic. And he had borrowed a bunch of money to go to this school, and he wasn't getting anything out of it, and he was very disgusted. And I had advised him and loved him and taught him about forgiveness and all this kind of thing, and he was loving me. He was just loving me. Unconditional love. I mean, he was just loving me. And I did not know that kind of love was possible on the earth plane. I didn't know.
Oh.
So instead of going through the center of those, whatever that was, those spinning vortexes, I went the other way to be like my son and learn what love really is.
Oh.
So I came back, and his name is Kelly. Kelly indeed did everything he could to help me and put me to bed. And I knew a naturopathic doctor. He was a good friend of mine. So the next morning, I called him on the phone and said, will you take me as a patient? He said yes. He was in Ontario, Oregon. I was in Boise, Idaho, so a little over the line. But he came to me, and then I went to him both. And he was very good at setting bones, and he was very good at homeopathy, and so I resolved, rather than, because I wasn't getting anywhere with the medical sciences, I resolved to go the homeopathic route. So I did. Best choice I ever made, by the way. If you're not into homeopathy, learn about it and get involved.
Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. I still take homeopathic remedies to this day.
Yeah, definitely.
So I did that, and I began to get well. Slowly but surely, I began to get well, and become me again. And my brains are back, and my life is back, and there's this in my last near-death experience, because I had a third near-death experience. In that third near-death experience, a voice spoke, and I call it the voice like none other, because I can't compare it to anything. So I call it the voice like none other. And that voice said to me, you are to do the research, one book for each death. Book number 1 was not named, but books 2 and 3 were. Book 2 is Future Memory. And then book 3 is a manual for developing humans. If you haven't read those books, do. Future Memory, by the way, is a labyrinth. It's not a book.
Wow.
It's a labyrinth.
That's cool.
So what do you do with a labyrinth? When you enter the labyrinth, start reading the book, you stay on the path no matter where it goes.
Yeah.
And it's the same way with the book. You cannot skip read in the book. You have to stay on the path.
Yeah.
If you stay on the path, it will change your thinking.
Wow, that's amazing.
The purpose of the book is to raise your consciousness.
I love that.
So If you haven't read Future Memory, read Future Memory. But
I'm gonna
remember,
get
it's
that.
not a book; it's a labyrinth.
Yeah.
So that Monday morning when I was supposed to get my big raise and become an officer in the bank, and in those days that was a big deal because women do not become officers in a bank. But I was going to be an officer in the bank.
Yeah.
And I went in to tell my boss, well, Monday morning, 9 o'clock, I had a meeting with my boss and sat down, and I told my boss that I'm going to quit and I'm going to chase rainbows. And she said, "Don't say another word, sit down." So I sat down, and she said that morning at 4 in the morning, she'd had a vision, and she woke up her husband and told him so she would have a witness.
Yeah.
And in her dream, I would walk into her office and say I was going to quit because I was going to chase rainbows.
Wow.
And I said, "That's not fair. You knew before I did." So I put my home up for sale, and fortunately for me, a woman whose family or mother or dad or something had just died, and she had all this money, so she bought the house. My youngest daughter chose to live with her father. My son and older daughter went off to live lives of their own, and I was free. So I went first to watch the sun set silver over the Pacific, and I zigzagged across the United States, seeing all the things I had ever wanted to see. And then, part of the scenario was I was to live in Falls Church, Virginia.
Okay.
Well, the United States ended in Denver, Colorado. How can there be a Falls Church, Virginia? There isn't even a Virginia. I was a true Westerner. I mean, yeah. So here I am, but I did find Falls Church, Virginia, and they had apartments there, so I rented an apartment, and of course, the need then to find work, and
Yeah.
I don't know, I must have been on the 4th floor or 5th floor or something like that, and the people right underneath me were from Idaho. Oh, how great! So we developed a relationship. They were an older couple. Just enjoyed them so much, and went out to then um, uh, um, uh, apply for work, and in Washington D.C. of all places, I'm applying for work, and the first place they sent me out to was the Electronic Industries Foundation on the corner of 20th and I. And you have the subway.
Yeah.
Whoa! A subway. That was a big deal to me. I mean, a subway. So I went up to where they were,
Yeah.
and just stood in the doorway. I didn't go in yet. I just stood in the doorway, and there to my left, in the desk, the receptionist desk, I was there, and I was getting up and I was going into the other offices and I was putting paper into the metal filing cabinets, and I was working, and I was just standing there watching myself working.
Wow.
And I knew that that's the place that where I would be. So eventually the guy called. I went in and I interviewed for the job. And then I left and I knew I was already had it because I was already there. So I went
Wow.
to DuPont Circle. I think it was DuPont Circle. Well, one of the circles in DC. And it had grass. So I laid down on the grass, put my purse over my chest and put my arms over my purse and went to sleep. And I don't know how long I slept, maybe an hour or more. And then I woke up and decided, well, maybe I ought to make a phone call to this employment agency. And I did. They were having a fit. They've been trying to find me and find me because I got the job. Well, I knew that. I said, that's fine. I'll see them at 9 in the morning. I mean, I didn't ask them when to be there. I just said, I'll see you at 9 in the morning. So I was there at 9 in the morning.
Amazing.
And that began my adventure in DC. And I had a lot of adventures because I was such a curious person, and especially architectural views and how things are made and what they look like. And there's all kinds of free shows in DC.
Okay.
This group would have a talk, or that group would have a showing, or what have you. And I finally decided, well, maybe I ought to talk about my near-death experiences because I'm supposed to do research. And the first place I could find that had any kind of platform where I could give a talk and not pay anything was a police station in Arlington. A police station, yes, yes, yes. I was so comfortable. So here's the cops, and then here's the community room.
Okay.
So I could be in the community room, and I talked about, and I gave a talk about my 3 near-death experiences. And I don't know really how the word got out. Maybe the police. And then I met a few people by then, and word spread, and I got a pretty hefty audience. So I told about my 3 near-death experiences. And when it was over, a woman came up to me. I swear she had stars in her eyes. And she looked up at me and she said something to the effect of that she wanted to have something like that happen to her so she could be like me. And I was thunderstruck. I told her about meditation and, and other ways, but I was just thunderstruck. I was not there to entertain people. I was there to do research.
Yeah.
So I never talked again about my near-death experience for about 30 years.
Really? Wow.
I mean, I was not there to entertain people. I'm not an entertainer.
Yeah.
And fortunately, various colleges and universities and I had lots of opportunities to give talks after that, which I did, and then meet people afterward. We would get around and they would talk about their own near-death experience or whatever was on their mind, and that began my research.
Okay.
And that was, when was that? In 1978, maybe? Must have been 78, 79, that period. And had it not, I was staying with an older woman who was German, and she and her daughter caught the last plane out of Germany before Hitler closed the airports down.
Right.
And so we talked a lot about that. And her daughter was very thrilled that I I was the tenant because I was normal. But anyway, to her, I was normal. And I just love this lady. And then some friends of mine held were going to hold uh, a workshop in Roanoke, Virginia, at the Unity Church in Roanoke, Virginia. And they were good friends of mine. So I decided, okay, I'll go down there in my little car. We'll drive down there and I'll attend their workshop. And I did.
Mm-hmm.
And while I was there, before I made this big poster with my picture and then saying I would like very much to move to Roanoke and that kind of thing. And so while I was there, it was held at the Unity Church, and I put it on their bulletin board, my little poster, and went back, of course, to DC and got a call. Oh, I don't know, a few days later, a week later, from an older couple from Ohio. He had retired from making cars or something. Anyway,
Okay.
they had retired a little bit north of Roanoke, and would I come and live with them? And there would be no charge. Just come and
Wow.
live with them. So I thought, okay, well, I'll do it. So my son and a couple other guys got together and take my things, and me, and truck us all down to Roanoke, Virginia. So I lived with them, and what little I had was in the basement. And I got a job working for an interconnect company.
Mm-hmm.
That was the kind of people that were that's the time when the telephone system was changing and they were going for a more modern model of telephones for hotels and motels and this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I got a job with them training people at these different sites how to use the new modern equipment.
Okay.
And everywhere I went, I kid you not, there were people who had near-death experiences, who had survived them,
Wow.
and were either scared or wanted someone to talk to.
Yeah.
And I was doing I was working a job. Let me give you an example of some of the things I went through. I was in Macon, Georgia.
Yeah.
Can you imagine someone from Idaho in Macon, Georgia? Well, I was in Macon, Georgia. And I was at this truck stop, and I was taking a coffee break. What they call coffee break. I didn't drink coffee, but they call it that.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I was raised by Norwegians. They don't drink coffee. Well, anyway. And I was just reading a little paperback and drinking some water and stuff. And this guy came up to me. I swear, he was almost as white as he was tall. He says, "Lady, can I sit with you?" And there's a little table in the middle. And I thought for a minute, and I thought, Okay. He sat down and then put his elbows on the table, leaning forward. He says, I want you to know that I still chase women and I still drink liquor. But I also want you to know all about the time I died and what happened to me.
Wow. Wow.
And that's the way it was. Didn't matter where my company sent me. Either the employees or people I would meet getting there
Yeah.
had a near-death experience and wanted someone, they wanted to talk about it. And when I was in the Tennessee area, word got out. So families would come with their children. And so I could talk to their children. It was almost as if I was wearing a sandwich board. And on the back of the sandwich board it said, tell me all about your near-death experience. It didn't matter where I was. This one time in Washington, D.C. with a taxi, getting into taxi to get to where I was to work. And the driver was the blackest man I've ever seen. I didn't know skin could be that black. I really didn't. And I found myself staring at him, and I just wanted to do this. This is it. I mean, you don't stare at people like that. I mean, nasty. But I was, and he got out of the cab and looked at me and smiled. He said, "You died just like I did. I want to tell you all about my near-death experience." I was like, and no kidding, I would be walking the streets of Washington, D.C. all by myself. And I was just walking the street.
Wow.
And this woman ran up to me and she said, I've got to talk to somebody. I've just got to talk to somebody. I've got to talk to somebody. And I looked at her and she said, I want to tell you all about the time I died and what I saw. Go figure. It was like that everywhere I went. And children, adults, jeez, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people.
The synchronicities, it's like
It was phenomenal. It was absolutely phenomenal. And this one time, my boss, they were putting in a new telephone system in a large hotel in New York City. And he wanted me to go up there and, look the place over and help the guys and this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because they were having problems with the system.
Yeah.
So they sent me up to New York City. And where I had to be was on the very, very top of the hotel, because that's where all the switchboards were. So I'm way up at the very tippy top. And here are the women, at the various switchboards. And there's all these cabinets, lots and lots of cabinets. And it's like almost midnight.
Okay.
So what I learned to do was to get where the cabinets are and open their doors so the women couldn't see what I was doing.
Yeah.
And I would join in with the electricity and with what was going on. I would just dive right into those lights. And so I could see what was really going on from inside
Wow.
because I had the ability to do that. I don't have
Wow.
the abilities after my near-death experience. And
Amazing.
so I would come back then and close the door and write it all down.
Yeah.
And I was up there for, I don't know, 4 or 5 days and came back with the points I noticed. The telephone operators and the various floors and what was going on here and what was going on there. Because this was very, very crucial. There had been so much advertising and everything about Japan's finest, Nippon's finest, and America's finest, and this new switching system at this big hotel in New York City.
Yeah.
And so I wrote down my facts. I forget how many there were, but there were pages, and turned them into my boss. And 2 days later, I think it was 2 days later, he called me into his office. The biggest problem they had was that their engineers, of course, all spoke English.
Yeah.
But Nippon's engineers all spoke Japanese. And there was no interpreter.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I didn't speak Japanese either. um, but taking my report, they were able to fix the system.
Right.
So my boss never looked at me, not one time.
Really.
His head down. Says, I want you to know that using your report, we've fixed the system. It's working just fine. And we're glad we sent you up there. You did good work. And then he got up and left. Never once looked at me. And I just sat there and screamed and yelled and jumped up and down and laughed. It was so funny. Oh, you might have thought I was some kind of witch or something, but that's the way it was.
Was he frightened of you then?
And then, well, I moved to Roanoke, and that's where I met Terry, my husband. Met him at the Unity Church in Roanoke Valley. And we dated, I guess, well, our very, very first date, up above Roanoke, there's a big reservoir. And so I met him at the Unity Church. He was attending that as well. Met him at the Unity Church. And we decided that we would get together that afternoon, maybe about 2. That would give me a chance to change clothes differently, and him too. So he picked me up at 2:00, and we went up to the reservoir. And he parked his car in the the parking space. And everything else is just the forest.
Yeah.
There's no walking. Well, there might be a few walking trails, but that's it. I mean, there was no facilities.
Yeah.
So we just walked and walked and walked around the reservoir and found this big old log. And we sat down and we began to sing to each other.
Oh.
And I would sing the songs that I knew, like coming in on an arm in a prayer. I mean, for me, World War II was massively huge.
Yeah.
When I was, to give you an example, I would be walking to school, and these people would have these huge gold stars up in their windows.
Okay.
Decals, huge gold stars. And those gold stars, each star was someone who, in their family, who died in the war effort. And they
Okay.
were given these gold stars.
Yeah.
And with the gold stars on the windows. Well, a little kid, I knew what that was. And I would just stand and cry and cry and cry. I don't recall a single morning in all of first grade when I didn't cry or somehow I had to stop my shutters just to get in the door of my classroom.
Hmm.
So it was that kind of, my songs came from World War II,
Okay.
coming in on a ring and a prayer and all this kind of stuff. And he was he would sing songs from the Bee Gees. Well, I didn't know the Bee Gees, but they were a pretty good group. And so on this log, we'd take turns, and we sang the moon down.
Oh.
And by then, it's dark, 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 dark. And Terry's panicking. How is he going to get to the car? Because we were way out in the woods. And I said, that's no problem. I'll just make a sound ball and we'll follow the sound ball. He said, what? Oh, you take the sound and you just put it together in a ball. You can do that by
Yeah.
and I'd just toss it, and we'd follow the sound of the sound ball, and it ended at the hood of his car in the parking lot.
Wow.
And Terry couldn't believe it. I said, honey, get used to it. That's the way life is.
Wow.
And we've had a wonderful marriage. Let's see. Does this show? There's
Yeah.
my honey bun.
Oh.
Terry, isn't he beautiful?
Yeah.
That's my honey bun. We've
Wonderful.
now been married 45 years.
Oh, that's
45
lovely.
years. And the marriage gets better every year. And the kids love him. All my, and their children, to them, he's grandpa.
Yeah. Is he still singing Bee Gees though?
No. No. He now sets up blood drives for the American Red Cross.
Oh.
But he's an incredible human being.
Oh.
To just give you a little snapshot of my youngest daughter, after she had her first child, his name is Richard. He was maybe about 5, and they were walking in one of these small Virginia towns, and waiting for the light to change so they could get to the other side of the street. And there was an African American guy, standing there. And little Richard goes up to this guy and puts his arm around his legs and says, "I love you, I love you, I love you." And my daughter was so embarrassed, and she's and she happened to, and she went up to the guy and she said, "My son thinks that all Black people are angels."
Oh.
Isn't that a wonderful way to grow up?
Oh.
Yeah. Of course, now he's way into these 30s. But it's been a good life. It's been a rough life.
Yeah.
We've had difficulties, but they've always worked out for the better. And I've continued my research over the years, and I think that's important to do this research. And people got to know this stuff.
Yeah.
of my books, and now I'm on the 27th, but especially the main one, the Big Book of Near-Death Experiences, and that's like an encyclopedia, only it's a fun encyclopedia full of cartoons and pictures and all kinds of stuff. Tell you about the good things, the not so good things, and enlightenment and baloney and all this kind of. It's all there.
Yeah.
It truly is an encyclopedia of the near-death experience, but it's not your normal encyclopedia. Please get that. And then Future Memory. Absolutely read Future Memory. It will change your brain.
Yeah, I need to get that.
You've got to read it. You cannot skip read it. When you start, Future Memory is like a labyrinth. So when you open the book and start reading, you're at the head of the labyrinth. You're at the entry of the labyrinth.
Yeah.
What do you do in a labyrinth? You follow the path. Doesn't matter where it goes, you follow the path. Same way with reading the book. Follow the path. You have to stay on the path. It may seem odd at times, but stay on the path. If you do, it will raise your consciousness.
PMH, may I ask you what was real? Because I've read the big book. I'm halfway through that, and there's a lot of areas where you mentioned that relationships change. Did your relationships change? Did you change after your?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. My children will attest to that. Yeah. Yes, I did.
Were you frightened at any point of your experiences? Was there any point where you were scared of what was happening?
No.
Or were you? No.
Sometimes you sort of wonder where the next money is coming from. But I would just I would work at whatever I could find.
But in terms of your near-death experiences, you weren't frightened, or you didn't feel fear or anything like that? You were.
My near-death experiences, to me, were confusing.
Okay.
It's like, what? What is this?
Yeah.
I didn't feel fear. I felt utter confusion. It's like, what is this? You know, I'm a typical Westerner. So what is consciousness? I would understand a bull chasing you, but consciousness? So I don't recall ever feeling fear. Maybe sometimes when my bills weren't paid, I didn't have enough money to pay the bills.
Yeah, I get that. I get that feeling. Yeah, I get that.
I don't recall ever being afraid. Curious, yes. Extremely curious.
Do you know, PMH, when you mentioned that in the second near-death experience that it was wonderful and you were creating and you were having a bit of an adventure in a way, weren't you? You were like creating a city, and
that was great.
and then your loved ones came. Did you feel, because I think the third one you said you didn't want to come back, but then love from your son brought you back. Is there with your research and the experiences you've had, do you feel that potentially we are tricked to come back to our bodies, or is it purely that was purely your choice?
Well, I don't relate to the word trick.
Okay.
I came back to my body because I came back to my body. I mean, there wasn't any idea of emotion involved at all.
Okay.
I came back to my body because I came back to my body. It wasn't something I feared. It
Yeah.
was something I was happy about.
Yeah.
It just happened.
And you were given this mission.
And I found it confusing. I've
Yeah.
found a lot of things confusing.
Yeah.
Like, I can't figure that one out. What's that? You know, and even afterward, when I'm I'm in the East, and I'm have this job. It's like a lot of confusion, and it's like this black fellow driving a cab. Then there was another guy in Minnesota, picked up this cabbie picked me up, and I was driven to this place where I was just supposed to work. And and I'm very curious. I want to know all about the tax base of this area, and the businesses, and you know, and the things that I'm really curious about. I want to know more about. And finally, the guide stopped me.
Mhm.
He was from Egypt, and he had a special um, special reason or whatever, that he could be in the United States and he could be in that part of Minnesota and he could be going to college.
Yeah.
And he said, "No, I don't want to tell you about that. I want to tell you about the time I died."
Wow.
And all this scenario that happened to him back in Egypt.
Because you've interviewed about 7,000 people, haven't you? Is it about 7,000 people that you've interviewed over the years?
It's nearly 5.
5. Okay.
Um, and
And a
both
lot of
adults and
children.
children, both adults and children, nearly 5.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people.
Yeah, that's a lot of people.
Beginning of one of your books, I was like amazed. There was this point where you mentioned this gentleman that had died, and he was dead for 3 days, and then, I mean, 3 days.
And he
That's
came back.
like, but you know what worries me about that is, how do we know that someone's truly dead then? Because the people are doing organ donations like very quickly, and I mean, that's like, wow, frightening.
It is wow. It's a
But
big
how
wow.
does when you have these near-death experiences, I'm presuming because the brain obviously has to keep some kind of memory for you to be able to tell me these stories. But after 3 days, surely the brain, you would have thought, would have no oxygen, and therefore, how does he? I think that's
But
incredible.
you see,
It's
it's
just
not
like,
the brain, it's the mind.
aha, okay,
It's the mind. The mind
okay,
is not brain.
yeah, yeah,
Brain is not mind.
okay,
They're different.
yeah. And
Uh,
you come back with abilities. And is this a normal thing for people to come back with
every,
ability?
everyone comes back somehow changed.
Right.
Depends on the um, what happened to them.
Yeah.
But those that were really really had a big or a strong or how would you near-death experience. Because not all near-death experiences are that that big or that impactful. Some of them
Yeah.
are just really quick, and there's really not much to them, and the individual doesn't affect them that much.
Yeah.
But those that are affected, and especially deeply so,
Yeah.
are never the same again. Never ever the same again.
Wow.
And it's the colloidal condition.
I see.
If you forget about psychology
Yeah.
and look at science,
Yeah.
if you will allow me, I'll take my glasses off so I can see better.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, guys, but I would like to tell you about colloids.
Please.
The colloidal state is a peculiar in-between condition which results when forces suddenly collapse, then converge. This in-between state creates anti-force, which is anti-gravity.
Right.
Particles caught in this unique state between implosion and explosion transmute and remain forever changed by that transmutation. On a molecular level, these particles show evidence of enlargement and of taking on different and enhanced characteristics. Now, let me give you an example here to better understand a colloidal condition.
Mm-hmm.
Rotate a vat of water. You've got your spin in the middle,
Yeah.
and you've got this big vat of water. Spin the water round and round, faster and faster.
Yeah.
The paddles are going faster and faster. Then stop the direction of the spin. Stop it dead in the water and reverse the direction.
Okay.
When you stop the spin, the water collapsed into itself, creating an implosion.
Right.
Just before you initiate a reverse spin, where the water could explode back out, conditions mysteriously change. This is called a colloidal condition, and particles caught therein are referred to as colloids. Gravity does not behave as a force. Gravity is not a force. It behaves as if it were the entrainment of a spin by a smaller object. Well, let me give you, I believe a colloidal condition
Yeah.
best describes what happens before and after a near death or really a strong transformative state.
Yeah.
This colloidal condition reflects the core mechanism for the shift energy makes. A shift that suspends, expands, and transmutes whatever is caught within it. That's what happens in a near-death experience. Let me go through it step by step. A colloidal condition is where forces suddenly collapse, then converge.
Right.
Okay? A momentary state of suspension results. Everything caught in that suspension expands and enlarges as anti-gravity is created. Inherent or unlimited potential is released.
Yeah.
Whatever is present is imprinted, becomes permanently altered by what happened. Whatever is present then transmutes, takes on different characteristics. As reversal of motion is completed, forces are restored. Suspension ends, but the imprinting remains.
Yeah.
We're talking about a near-death experience or a spiritual transformation, the big heavies. The imprinting remains. The process that creates colloids correlates almost exactly to what happens to those who undergo spiritual transformations and near-death experiences. It is my belief that the reason this process of convergence and transmutation is so universal and basically the same for all of us is because all of us, every one of us, now and throughout the ages, are and have always been imprinted by the same creative impulse that originated us. The mark of our creation.
Wow.
Is what we display whenever our consciousness is free to rediscover itself.
Wow. Yeah.
That's what these experiences are. All of them.
Wow.
I don't care how you had your transformative experience. You become a living colloid. Let me give you examples of colloids. Butter. Rubber. No matter what you do to butter, it's always butter.
Yeah.
No, what you do to rubber, it is always rubber. That's what happens in these transformative experiences. They spin you back to who you really are.
Wow.
We are all, if you want to use the phrase, we are all children of the same God.
Yeah.
We're all wearing bodies and have brains and have a chance at life. Depending. And that process of discovering ourselves and who and what we are, that process of then opening up and converging into our greater self. And that's what all of the experiences are. Near-death experience, a spiritual experience. If it affects you deeply,
Mm-hmm.
it turns you into a colloid.
I get what you mean. And those that have not had that experience, they get confused. Yeah, they struggle to relate then. Because they think you're weird.
Well, I went out and did my work because I was told to do my work.
Did you think you had a choice in that? I mean, was it scripted for you in that way? That your life seems to this has happened, this huge trauma, and you've now become
Didn't matter.
You're a yeah.
Didn't matter. Nope. That voice that spoke to me
Yeah.
said, test revelation.
Okay.
Test revelation. You are to do the research, one book for each death. Of course, I've written 27, but that's neither here nor there. And that was that. Period. Period. End of story. So I went out and did it.
It's just, it's phenomenal.
I worked in 1978, and it is now 2025. And I'm working on my last, what I consider to be my last research book.
Didn't you say that a few years ago?
And the near-death experience.
Didn't you say that a few years ago that this was your last one and you're doing it?
My last research book. Yes, I know. But
you know, PMH, you're amazing.
I get to be 88 in September.
Oh wow!
Yes, I get to be 88 in September. Isn't that cool?
Wow!
So
you're so amazing.
Yeah,
you're so amazing. Can I ask you? You obviously you've documented thousands of these experiences. Is there a consistent, a most consistent theme or truth that's come out of that that research?
Consistent theme.
Yeah, and what people experience.
I don't know that I can put it into words very well. It's the idea of that life isn't what we thought it was. That we are bigger and better than we thought we were.
I love that. Yeah.
That there's more to life than we thought there was.
There's more to life than going to work 9 to 5, isn't there?
That 9 to 5 is fantastic. Bless the 9 to 5.
Yeah.
And enjoy the 95.
Yeah.
And the rest of the day, do incredible things with that rest of the day, even if it's just baking a pie.
Yeah.
I mean, that's incredible. I mean, everything is incredible. Look at this wonderful.
This is the thing, Pam. I just love the joy that you have. You have so much joy. It's and we could take so much from that. I mean, life, people struggle in life, don't they? Life gets to
they
bogged down by it. Yeah.
And there are times when I go through some really rough stuff.
Yeah.
Like this January, the third week of January, I fell on the ice in our driveway. It did not, everything seemed dry to me. So I'm walking down our driveway, being very careful. And the next thing I knew, I'm looking at the sky. I have no sense of falling. None.
No.
I have no sense of the pain of falling. I'm just looking at the sky. And I was holding a dozen and a half eggs. Just got back from getting groceries with my husband. So I was holding those in my left hand. And only broke 3 of them, by the way. And the neighbor ran over to help my husband, get me right.
Yeah.
And all I could say was hospital.
Okay.
And broke my left shoulder, left elbow, had to have surgery and required months of rehabilitation. And my arm still isn't straight. It's still,
Bless
this is a
you.
straight arm. This is not. This
Bless
is
you.
still a
Yeah.
bit of a curve. And I have some other health issues that, have to face
Yeah.
ahead of me.
Yeah.
And nobody wants this kind of you don't want to face this kind of thing, but you do.
Mm.
When you do. And I just knew that that things would be better. I didn't know how better.
Yeah.
I just knew better. And I may be facing another surgery. I'll know in a week. Has to do
Okay.
with my teeth. And you just don't know. You do your best, but you don't know for sure what's going to come from that. And maybe possibly mouth surgery. And if I have to face that, I'll face it.
Yeah.
And I'll take care of it.
Yeah.
I can boohoo, and I've done a little boohooing. And think of all things to have happened to you. But I'll face that on Monday when I go see the final oral surgeon and find out if I have to have oral surgery. So, you just face that. One of the things that really helps me, and do I have a copy down here? Don't know if I have a copy down here. It may be upstairs. But you want to get the magazine. It's small. Science of Mind. And it's based on the writings of Ernest Holmes.
Yeah.
I'm thinking maybe I have something down here. And I don't. I have pages that I've torn from the magazine. You can get the book, Science of Mind by Ernest Holmes.
Okay.
Here's a page I tore from the magazine. But it has different quotes on top, and then it has like a little lesson. And then at the bottom, again, some very inspiring words. I try to meditate every morning.
Yeah.
I read from the Science of Mind magazine. Have a high regard for the Bible. We go to Unity Church.
Yeah.
My husband and I, because we love Unity Church. And Unity Church embraces everybody.
That's nice.
It's not based on any one. Trying to see, is there anything else down here? I think it's all upstairs.
PMH, when you mentioned about people change after these experiences, are we equipped medically and psychiatrically to help people? I mean, is the systems in place to help people that have gone through these experiences?
Sometimes not. Sometimes you're too confused afterward.
Okay.
So the person you're helping is yourself. And certainly IANDS, IANDS, the International Association of Near-Death Studies.
Yeah.
If you're not a member of IANDS, become one. And get on their website. Absolutely. They have wonderful programs.
Yeah.
They're having their big annual convention the last week of August in Chicago, Illinois. So, and I'll be there. So will my husband. You want to IANDS is very, very helpful. Very
Okay.
helpful. So you want to be a part of that. Unity Church, of course, is very, very helpful because they don't espouse any one line. Although they do have founders of Unity Church, and they do have their founders do have incredible stories.
Yeah, I can
like
imagine.
the founder's wife was sort of dying of lung. Let's see, was it tuberculosis, I believe, and she spoke the truth. And the truth is, we're all children of God, and the one God, the one mind, the one soul. And she spoke these kinds of truths. Took her a while, but she cured her own tuberculosis.
Wow, did she? Amazing. You did some lecturing at the Monroe Institute as well, didn't you?
Yeah, a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that Robert Monroe's quite famous regarding talking about loosh. Is that something you ever looked into yourself, where there's entities that loosh energy from human beings? Did you ever come across anything like that when you were at the Monroe Institute?
I'm not sure that I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
There's entities everywhere. I don't see them that often anymore, but I did for a while.
Did you? Yeah.
And I finally decided that one of these days I'm going to have a sign made and put over our front door.
Yeah.
And that sign will say, "Welcome, whether you're wearing a body or not."
I like that. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
What with all this huge, incredible experience you've had and all the research you've had, have you come to the what the purpose of life is?
I don't know that I can give you the kind of answer I think you would like to have. What I have come to realize is how incredible each and every one of us are.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And we are all children of the same God. Or force. You can call it a force. You don't have to call it God, G-O-D. You can call it force. And that we are here to discover and use and originate and
create,
be a part of that force.
Yeah.
And wherever that force leads us, whatever we do. I read from the Science of Mind magazine every morning. There is a book called Science of Mind by Ernest Holmes.
Okay.
I suggest you read it. I suggest anybody read it.
Yeah.
It's practical. It gets right down to tack, and it's wonderful. And that's one of the things I discovered after I died. I discovered the Unity Church, and I discovered the Science of Mind Church. And Yeah.
Is death something to fear then?
No. No. Why would you fear death? You just go on and on and on. So all it does is end where you are, and you go on to the next one. What you want to do is to accomplish and learn and express as much as you can in the life you have.
Yeah.
Take advantage of what you have, and do as much as you can with what you have.
Hmm.
And that's what I've done. And yeah, you get a lot of cat calls. Yes, yes, you have a lot of threats. You have a lot of people who think you're stupid or silly or why you're doing what you're doing because you don't have all the degrees that says you can or should be doing this. What difference does any of that make? If you have a job to do your job and do more of your job.
Are you happy with the job that you were given then? Because you were definitely given this job.
Yep. Yes, I'm very. I feel. I just feel very grateful.
Yeah. Yeah.
That I've lived the life I've lived. And if I just, if I leave next year, just look at what I've experienced and the places I've been and the things I've done. It's just wow. It's just a wow. It's just a big wow.
I think you're just one of the most wonderful, inspiring people I've ever spoken to in my life, honestly. I think you're incredible. And I'm so glad I've had the opportunity to chat with you. You're a joy.
Well, you too.
You're a joy.
Yeah, we've done our thing today, haven't we?
This was the easiest interview I've ever had to do.
Yeah, good. Yeah, life is just so much fun. Even the bad parts. Life is just so much fun.
It's an adventure, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had a crazy life. Well, that makes it interesting.
It does. It does.
Yep.
So where can people get your books from then? Is it the usual places, Amazon?
Yes, indeed. You certainly do want to get the big book of near-death experiences that gives you the full span of cases, and it does so in a way that's fun to read.
Yeah.
You certainly do want to get future memory, absolutely. Beyond the light, coming back to life. Let's see, just a minute. You absolutely must get a manual for developing humans.
Yeah.
Because it gives you a lot of things you can do in there.
Were you given this information when you were writing?
Acupressure facelift. You can do it every morning.
Were you downloading this
on children? The forever angels.
PMH, when you were writing, were you downloading information as you were writing then? Was you provided this information?
Well, not necessarily. The way I approach my books is I always ask, about the book. and um, would this be best for my highest good and the highest good of all concerned if I do this book?
Yeah.
If I get a no, I don't do it.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And if I get a yes, there'll just be sparkles all over the place.
Oh, lovely.
And then I'll tackle it.
Yeah.
But this is so important because a child being born can have a near-death experience. A child is still in the womb about to be born can have a near-death experience.
Yeah.
We need to know about children, and we don't.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So get the Forever Angels, near-death experiences in childhood and their lifelong impact. They grow up different. They're not like any other human or any other near-death experiencer. In fact, some of them don't even like the term near-death experience.
Right.
And their stories are just incredible. So get that book, The Forever Angels. You must have that book. Absolutely must have. And Future Memory, you've got to read Future Memory. Absolutely. I've got a little one that you might like. We Live Forever. It's a small book. The Real Truth About Death, with wisdom from the Edgar Cayce readings. Of course, Edgar Cayce was a great psychic.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But that book is very personal to us because our son, his daughter died.
Oh.
She was about 3 years old, maybe.
Oh.
2.5, 3 years old. And the story of her, but also of how things work on the other side, is in that book, We Live Forever. And it's a good little book. You ought to get that book. But hey, get on my website, www.pmhatwater.com.
Absolutely.
I think there's a section in there on charts, a chart, and all kinds of. I believe very much in condensing everything to the smallest terms possible. So all kinds of things are explained there.
Yeah.
It takes the average near-death experiencer at least 7 years to integrate their experience. That's minimum.
And children's longer, isn't it?
Well,
Children.
not necessarily. It depends on the child.
Okay.
And then you consider a manual for developing humans a must.
Yeah.
Because it even teaches you how to do an acupressure facelift.
Nice.
Do them every morning. Makes you feel better. And you look better.
And people can sign up to your newsletter as well on your website.
Oh yes.
Can't they?
And so get over to newsletter. Once you're on www.pmhatwater.com, then get over to newsletter.
Yeah.
And sign up for the newsletter. There is an archive there, so you can go back previous issues.
Cool.
As far back as you want to go, because I've been doing it for several years. It's a newsletter for the curious.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to find anything in there. It's a newsletter for the curious. Not necessarily about near-death experiences, not at all. So you'll be surprised at what's in there. And yeah.
We should stay curious, because that's where the adventure is.
Yeah.
PMH, I want to thank you so much. You are one of the most incredible people I've ever spoken to. You're so
Yeah.
wonderful, and I
Oh,
appreciate.
you're fun too. You're fun
I
too.
appreciate it.
And
Thank you
you're
so much. Yeah, they're gonna love you.
Get busy and get things done, because life is full of joy. Don't let anybody tell you different.
Thank you, PMH.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.